Well, welcome everybody to how to stop shame from sabotaging your success. Not just your success, but a lot of the happiness in your life, a lot of the good stuff, and because a lot of us have been, set up in a certain way and wired a certain way, and we don't need to perpetuate this pattern. So I'm so excited if you are joining us today at a computer, which you are. So, just to make sure that you really get everything that I'm about to tell you, because I'm really going to, throw a lot at you in a small amount of time. Why don't you make sure that you, shut off all of your distractions, put the phone away, shut off the Facebook and, the email, everything, and just focus on what I'm saying and take some good notes too. Because this stuff is, like, again, a lot of information in a small amount of time. So shame is such a big thing. And we've all been there to some degree. We've all felt it. Sometimes it's a little more apparent in our life. Sometimes we don't even realize it's there. But shame is such a huge pandemic, I would say. And, it can bring a lot of destruction in our life. And at the end of the day, out of all of the energy fields, out of all of the emotions, it's such a low place to be. And a lot of the times, like I said, it's going on in the background and we don't realize. And shame could do a lot of damage in a lot of different areas in your life. For sure, in in our professional or career-wise or business goals. And ask any entrepreneur who's dealt with it. If we have a program of shame, it could cause us to, not get things done in time, or not get things done at all, or to procrastinate, or to, on an unconscious level, we can sometimes fail at things without realizing it, because we're addicted to this emotional holding pattern. Shame is definitely one of those things that can, if you're not feeling like you're adding up as a partner in your relationship, if you feel like you're, maybe you're not bringing in enough money to help support the family. Maybe you're not, maybe you have sexual issues with your partner that aren't happening. A lot of times there's a lot of shame around it. And so a lot of, the thing about shame is, because it's so much in the background, we don't realize often that we're feeling it. It's not like anxiety, which anxiety, we know we're feeling anxious. It's something that's generally a little more apparent. Anger is something that you can generally be more, but shame can be in the background without us, realizing it. And it can cause us to have all sorts of bad negative habits that we think are shameful. A lot of people, for instance, binge eating, people binge eat and then feel really bad about it. People smoke and then feel really shameful about it. And so often enough, the addiction isn't so much the cigarette or the food, but the emotion that's wrapped around that activity. And, a lot of our addictions, in fact, cigarettes, it's a fact that the actual nicotine habit, within 3 days, you can get rid of it in your body. But but when, I've done a lot of coaching with people, especially for the cigarette and for overeating. And a lot of times the real addiction is how shameful and guilty they feel about what it is they're doing. So that's the hard part to give up. And I'll explain that in a little bit, because, again, it's a lot of it's an unconscious process, shame. And Brene Brown, if you've never looked up any of her stuff, she does a lot on shame and self-worth. A lot of really great books and articles that she's written. Follow her. She has some great YouTube. She has a great YouTube video about vulnerability. If you type Brene Brown, I think it might be the first one that comes up. I guarantee you'll put a tear in your eye. So shame is the most powerful master emotion. It's the fear that we're not good enough. The fear that we're not good enough. And that's that last part, not good enough. That's where a lot of shame comes from. We don't add up, that we're not good enough, because, we all feel it to some degree. And if you're not familiar with Dr. David Hawkins' Power versus Force, which is a great book. All of his books are great. I'm a huge fan of Hawkins. He's passed away now, but he was a medical doctor and a psychiatrist, and he wrote a book called Power versus Force, amongst others. And he has this map of consciousness, and the numbers really aren't that important right here. But if you look at that first column, the shame, guilt, apathy, grief, fear, desire, anger, pride. So all of those ones that are under the 200 mark are negative emotions. And the lower they go down that list, the lower the energy field around it. And if you've ever seen somebody like who's in, apathy, somebody who's really depressed, someone, low energy, really like, even looking up at lights can be too much energy for them. And so, but look at how far shame is down. All those emotions, shame is like right at the bottom, at the lowest part. It's just where when we really don't feel good about, we don't feel like we're lovable. We don't feel like we're good enough. We don't feel like we deserve happiness, what we deserve, love, that we deserve, help from other people. We just don't feel good about ourselves. Like we're like, there's something about us that's not right. That's not good. You know what I mean? So shame, out of all of these levels of emotion, is right down at the bottom of it all. And I think everybody that I know, everybody that I've ever met, to some degree, deals with a program like this, because at some point, especially in our first 6 to 8 years of a life, we all go through an experience that has us feeling not good enough. Like, think about, as a baby, you're all of a sudden, like, let's say you're just right when you come out, you feel loved, you're always like praised, you're always, you're given lots of love. And so until the first day that you're disciplined, one day you do something wrong and mommy or daddy says bad boy or bad girl. And sure enough, right there in that moment, you were like, oh, I feel loved. Oh, wait a second. I'm not lovable. I'm a bad person. I'm being disciplined here. And not that mommy and daddy are trying to cause any issues, because they have to, make sure that the child, is safe and all this kind of stuff and is behaving and whatnot. But in that moment, right there and then, you could feel this, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. Or if mom is too busy, watching a TV show or on her phone, or too busy with chores to pay attention to you, in that moment you could feel, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy of mommy's attention right now. So, and not only that, on another level that we get programmed at that young age is that we're praised when we do something cute, or when we do something, like tie our shoe or take a step, or when we achieve something, we're praised. But we're not often praised for just being, right? So we develop this, like, I need to be achieving in order to be a good person, in order to be loved, in order to feel, worthy. I need to be achieving all the time. So I can't just be a person. I can't just be in my own skin and be a good person. Like, so we develop these programs from a very young age, and then we add to them by social programming and religious programming, and like with the shoulds and the shouldn'ts. Like, we're so jam-packed with, on one level you can do anything that you could put your mind to, and then on the other level, but you should be doing this, and you should be, and you should be following the stages of life, and you shouldn't be doing that, and that's bad, and this is bad, and this is, and you should. So there's all these kinds of shoulds and shouldn'ts that can drive a person insane, but they're real, and they add up and they pile up. And so this program perpetuates over and over and over and over again. And so most of us, to some degree, have had an experience where, when we were young, that we felt like we weren't worthy enough. We felt like we didn't belong. We felt like we were different. We felt alone, and so these programs perpetuate. And the thing about emotions, they get, that unconscious, our emotional holding patterns are stuck in our unconscious mind. If you've ever seen the iceberg effect, or the whole conversation about the 10% of the iceberg is above the water and 90% of the iceberg is below the water. And So that then this represents the whole kind of conversation between the conscious mind and the unconscious mind, right? The conscious mind, the part of us that's able to think and put things together, and like, it's basically just short-term memory, and we have reason factor in our conscious mind. So our ability to be aware is in our conscious mind. Our ability to be in charge is our conscious mind. Our unconscious mind, which is below the water, which is a big part of us, is running all the time, even when the conscious mind isn't. Even when the conscious mind is distracted or asleep, the unconscious mind is busy beating your heart and turning tissue into blood, and helping manage all the levels in your body, and at the same time, a lot of our programs are in our unconscious mind. A lot of our beliefs, a lot of our experiences are stored there. And so whatever we experience as a child, whatever we see happening with mom and dad, or whoever acted as mom and dad, like, there are examples. But then again, we go through that social programming and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of our issues are in our unconscious mind, right? In our habit mind. And your unconscious mind is powerful, and it's always running, whereas the unconscious mind, it gets distracted and it shuts off, and sometimes it just doesn't have enough power to run. So what can we do to like, when the unconscious mind has these beliefs and patterns inside it, and yet we want to be like, so I'll say to myself, I want to achieve this, but and so I set these big goals and I want to move in that specific direction, yet my unconscious patterns, so like some part of me in my childhood, an aspect of me, could be going right in the other direction, because of, for some reason, it's trying to protect me, because it thinks something bad will happen if I do good things or move in that direction. But it's like this pulling in the other direction, and it's a part of you, and yet it's sabotaging you. And so we need to deal with that. So what can we do? Well, first step is just being aware. Okay, and that's key. That's number one. Being aware of when that shame is coming up, when it's coming up in your actions. Like, so when you're doing things that you feel shameful about, or just in the thought process of it all. Like, sometimes we'll see, like, whenever you hear yourself saying should or shouldn't, that's a good sign as well. But it's really the feeling that we want to start to become aware of. So whenever you notice yourself, let's say that you have a specific pattern in your life. Let's say I had a client the other day who constantly is trying to, build his business, but keeps all the effort that he puts into it, and he puts a lot of effort, like a lot of action goes into it, all that effort, but it always falls short. It always seems to fall short, and he's always, he's never able to bring enough money home, to pay all the bills. He's feeling disappointed. He's not able to, because of that, because he's feeling like that, he's like, it's so tied to his manhood is so tied to his ability to make money and provide is so tied to his manhood that he hasn't been able to make love to his wife properly. And so that makes him feel bad and feel more ashamed, and it just kind of perpetuates. And again, the thing about emotions is that emotions are chemicals. Every emotion you have has a specific chemical that's pumped out of your brain and into your body, and your cells eat it up. And at one point, if you've been feeling these having these chemicals over and over, your body, your cells, some of them get addicted to those specific proteins and start saying, okay, well, I want that I want to get that fixed. So you unconsciously keep putting yourself into positions where you end up feeling shame or guilt or whatever else your emotional holding pattern is. And so first step is being aware, and not just being like conscious of the fact, okay, I know I feel shame in this situation, but you actually also want to bring what I call unconditional presence into the situation. Unconditional presence. Unconditional presence is simply this. The next time any emotion is coming up, rather than being in your thought process about it, so rather than being in your mind, I want you to close your eyes and scan your body and see where you're feeling the emotion. Because guaranteed, there's always a physical part to an emotion. That's why we feel their feelings, right? We feel them. And so we want to scan and see, where am I feeling this in my body? And then bring your attention to it and just bring unconditional presence there. Unconditional meaning you just sit there and focus on it and breathe with it and relax with it, instead of resisting it, instead of labeling it, instead of trying to change it and push it away or compartmentalize it or hide it from everybody. It's just real radical self-acceptance. In fact, there's a great book called Radical Self-Acceptance by Tara Brach, Brach, and that has some great stuff to kind of get you to like feel your inside. Radical Self-Acceptance, Tara Brach. I should have put that in the presentation. Anyway, so first step is becoming aware and feeling and being present with. The thing about emotions are, if you're just present with them and feel them, like the actual sensation of them, and get out of the thought process and just really into the feeling, then it dissipates itself. It changes itself. You don't have to do anything. It's when we get into our thoughts. So when I'm in a negative frame of, if I'm getting a negative feeling coming up, that means my negative filter's on. So if I get into my head when I'm feeling negative, what happens is I'm looking at the world, at what's going on through that negative filter. So it's hard for me to step out of that framework. What I need to do first is just breathe with the feeling, relax with the feeling, let it dissipate. And then when I'm in a better place, then I can go into the thought process part and, solve it and use my left brain to kind of change my perception afterwards. But first and foremost, I need to be with the feeling. If you don't be with the feeling, you could just try and change the thought process, but then you could be suppressing stuff later on, and that can get into dangerous places. So first step, really becoming unconditionally present with what you're feeling. And then the key when it comes to getting over an old habit or pattern is our conscious mind, right? The part of us that can say yes or no. But when I am low energy, my conscious mind doesn't have the power behind it to be able to take over, right? So when I'm low energy, my conscious mind's almost kind of shut off, and my unconscious mind has all of the power. And that's kind of like I was talking about binge eating first. If you ask anyone, like, they'll tell you that most binge eating happens late at night when a person's really tired and their conscious mind's like doesn't have enough juice to say, hey, no, I shouldn't be doing this. In fact, I'll say not just most binge eating, but most bad habits come out at night. In fact, I know that from a lot of my clients, my coaching clients. And what does that mean to maintain your energy level? It means you need to watch your sleep habits. Make sure your sleep is because that's first and foremost, right? Our energy level. We can't recharge our battery if our sleep isn't there. So you got to make sure that you're shutting off the blue lights a couple hours before bed, and not having a lot of sugar close to bedtime or caffeine or stimulants. Making sure you're not listening to a lot of negative stuff before bedtime, and doing some kind of relaxation. Cool down, not cool down, but like just winding down your day at the end of the day, some kind of relaxation, letting go of stuff so you get a good night's sleep, so you wake up. You need to eat right. You need to make sure you're getting a lot of fruits and vegetables naturally, getting that kind of stuff. And you need to exercise, not too much, but just the right amount, and not too little, because exercise gives us energy. You need to make sure that you're dealing with your stresses, and that's the big one that drains us of our energy, right? When we're high stress, we're draining ourselves of our energy. And when we're high stress, that's another thing. Like when we're in a high stress, when we're in a fight or flight mode, the blood vessels in our forebrain are constricted, and all the blood goes into the hindbrain, which is where the animal brain is, the unconscious mind. And so when we're in a stressful place, we're giving our habits a lot of the resources, not our conscious mind. And so learning how to de-stress, learning how to manage your stress and manage your reactions, which often can, it's not an easy, that's like something that you have to train yourself and slowly, obviously you have to do like, like some yoga or relaxation or meditation or guided relaxation in those moments. But also, like, for instance, I knew a guy who was in the finance industry who, as soon as the bell rang when they was on the trading floor, as soon as that bell rang, his stress levels were through the roof. No matter what, they were through the roof. And we managed to get his stress levels to come down outside of work time. But while that, he was so rewired to be high stress when he was in that environment that it took about 6 months to slowly get that guy to and we had to use a device from the Heart Math Institute that basically would alert him when he was high stress, and then it would kind of show him how to do this breathing pattern to bring him back down. And it took about 6 months of deprogramming him because he'd worked there for such a long time. But what he noticed was that now that he was getting to the end of his day and not being stressed all day, he had all sorts of energy, for the rest of the day, to the rest of the night, because he wasn't draining himself all day with being stressed all the time. Because stress drains you. And in fact, any negative emotion, whatever it is an energy drain. So we need to make sure, like we showed you in that the map of consciousness earlier, anything in the below that 200 is a leak, is a minus in your energy level. So he had to learn slowly over time to de-stress it. And having a good coach or a good mentor to help you kind of with that, because we're not always like, when we're trying to break patterns, it can be a little bit of a period where it's like, when a plane is taking off at the beginning, it has to burn a lot more fuel, but once it gets to cruising altitude, it's burning a lot less fuel. And it's the same thing when we're trying to break an old habit. It takes a lot of fuel at the beginning, but then it generally, gets a lot easier later on. But it's hardest at first, and people give up too soon, unfortunately. So having somebody to keep you accountable, having someone to support you, can sometimes be very important. And oddly enough, seek support if you have a pattern that's really there and it's intense and you're having a hard time with it. There's no shame in getting some support from a therapist or a coach or someone like myself to help you with it, because look, keeping that pattern in your life for so long is going to drain you. It's going to hurt relationships. It's going to cost you money. It's going to cost you energy. It's going to cost you your health. So it's important to make sure that you nip some of those in the bud. And as much as I've been able to do a lot of my own, that going to see some of my coaches and mentors and therapists over the years, like we all need support sometime. We all need help. So make sure you're getting it when you need it. Do attempt it all on your own, but when you are feeling like you need that support, reach out. Love yourself enough to reach out. Oops, that's a wrong slide. And lastly, like really at the end of the day, when it comes to feeling negative about yourself, when you're feeling a low self-worth, you have to fill your life up with self-love practices. There's all sorts of self-love practices out there, but a lot of people think is self-love sometimes is just distraction and coping mechanisms. But real self-love is taking care of yourself, honoring your boundaries, making sure that people aren't stepping over your boundaries, making sure that you're being honest and committing to your word, because that's a big leak. So there's a lot of things that real self-love practice takes, and that also means not compromising who you really are for others, and that's a challenging one. But fill your life up with self-love practices, meditation and like guided relaxation exercises, restorative yoga, all of those stuff that have you focused in, getting some energy in time, saying that, hey, energy in is worth it. And why I think it's important to start your day with something, with some kind of focused in practice, some kind of an energy in practice, because that says to your unconscious mind, hey, first things first, energy in, self-love first. And so I would love for everybody out there to get that message, that self-love, 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 self-love. I should just call that intro program Self-Love 101 instead of Energy Up, Stress Down. But anyway, that being said, I hope you enjoyed this webinar. I tried to keep everything, in a short amount of time, because I know people don't have a lot of time these days to to take out of their busy days. If you do have any questions, you can always find me at mark@mindbodyentrepreneur.com. Mark@mindbodyentrepreneur.com. That's right. Please feel free to answer me any questions, or find me on social media and send me a question out there. And if you're interested in going deeper, a lot deeper into the whole self-love practicing, there is my course. If you go to energyupstressdown.com, energyupstressdown.com, or mindbodywarrior.com, you'll see this Energy Up Stress Down. It's an online course, 14 days. It takes you through all of the from all of the different elements. Every day you're getting a new package, a new video. Every day you're getting new resources. You have a lot more than 14 days to finish the course. Here are the topics. We're going from mind-body connection. We're talking about focused in time. We're talking about your stress cup. We're talking about nutrition. We're talking about clutter, time management. We're talking about the biggest sabotages, comfort zone. We have some great topics, and all of it is around what we just spoke about too. So if you're interested, and if you would like to talk about the course, contact me. We can set up a little bit of time. You also, with this course, have a 30-day money-back guarantee to try it out and make sure that if you're not happy with it, if you try it out and actually complete it fully and are not happy, I'll give you your money back easily. Done. All right. Well, I hope you have a wonderful night. Self-love is the key message here. Take care of yourself, and we'll see you soon.